Hello, sir. Good evening.
Hi, good evening, Gaston.
How are you, sir?
I am fine. How are you?
Uh, Good, sir. Good, sir. First of all, I would like to say on behalf of our healthcare engineering team, thank you so much for accepting our invitation to have an interview session with us. Thank you
Yeah,
so much for allocating a few hours with us.
no problem. I'm always glad to share whatever I know, with the industry or with our colleagues.
So the aim of this kind of interview session is just getting the experiences and the skills from experienced people like you and share among the students and freshers so that they can get a clear idea about the industry and they can develop themselves. That's why we do these kind of interview sessions. Mostly we can say knowledge sharing session. That's
Yes,
why we do this, sir.
sounds good. Sounds good. Go ahead.
Okay, sir. Okay. Okay, so since I know you from when I was staying in Malaysia, I came to know about your profile. So let me introduce you quickly to our viewers. Engineer Dharmesh Doshi from ECRI, right? So
Yes.
could you please introduce more about yourself, sir, to our viewers?
Sure, sure. So my name is Dharmesh, and I studied at the University of Malaya. So my bachelor's degree is in
University from
biomedical engineering. Yeah, so my bachelor's degree is in biomedical engineering. And after I graduated, I worked a few years in the industry, and I also did my MBA in healthcare management. And after that, I did some furthering of studies in healthcare leadership as well. So currently, I am a registered professional engineer with the Board of Engineers Malaysia. And I'm also an ASEAN Chartered Professional Engineer. Right. So my field, of course, passion is in biomedical engineering. So the discipline which I've been involved in, of course, from the beginning, from the basic degree till now, is in biomedical engineering.
Sounds great. Sounds great. So, sir, could you please explain about your workplace? I mean, your office, how it functions, and all to our viewers?
Sure. So I'm currently working with ECRI. I can see the logo on my screen, ECRI. And yeah, I'll be happy to share what ECRI does. And if I may share some slides, that probably will be clearer. So maybe I'll just take a few minutes here to introduce ECRI as an organization and the office which I'm from, which is the ECRI Asia Pacific office. Okay, so are you able to see my screen clearly, Gaston?
Yes, sir. It's very clear.
All right. So one of the questions which we always get asked, or I always get asked, is what does ECRI stand for? ECRI as an acronym.
ECRI. Yeah.
Yes.
Acronym,
So many years ago, when the organization first started, we were known as the Emergency Care Research Institute.
Emergency Care Research Institute. Okay.
Yes, because of the nature of the work which we did at that time. But over the years, the organization has changed. I mean, the nature of the work has also expanded to include many other things. So I will go through some of the things that ECRI does. So the organization, I mean, how the organization started is quite interesting because it was started by this person, Dr. Joel J. Noble. He was the founder of the organization and he passed on a few years ago. But how the organization started was like this. So you can see him here. He's standing beside something called the Max card. It's something which he invented. Okay, so the device which you see in front of you or in the photos is something called the Max card, where this was, I think, way back in the 1950s and 60s, the early days of medical devices. He actually built this card integrating chest compression device, a mercury sphygmomanometer. There's also an ECG function built into this card, where a patient can be placed on this card and resuscitated while being transported to probably the emergency department or another section of the hospital. So he was the inventor of this device, and now this device actually it's in the Smithsonian. It's a museum in the US. So how the organization started was quite interesting. So when Dr. Joel Noble was a young doctor and working in an emergency department of one of the hospitals in the US, he, of course, at that time, the early days of medical device and medical device regulations, but so when he was working in his emergency department, he actually reported that some of the devices, especially a defibrillator, was not working. So he has reported it a few times to the hospital administration. And then one day, during an emergency, a 4-year-old boy was wheeled into the emergency department, and he had to resuscitate this patient, a pediatric patient. So when he tried to use the defibrillator and apply it on the patient, the defibrillator failed. So he could not resuscitate the patient. So they went to find for another device nearby, but by that time, I think the patient had already passed on. So that 4-year-old boy died basically in his arms. And that situation or that made him very angry, because he could not understand why the device failed. A life-saving device, a critical device such as a defibrillator, failing at a crucial point, and that anger spurred him to actually start testing medical devices independently. So what he did was he got a grant from the state of Pennsylvania in the US and started up with a few engineers, with a few biomedical engineers. He had a lab, he brought in the device and started testing medical devices on his own, and without...
So this one is a USA-based company, right?
Yes. So when he started testing these devices, of course in the US, these were the early days, and he started checking for safety of these devices, because there are many devices out there in the market, many manufacturers producing all kinds of devices, but not all were safe, he found. So through his independent testing, he actually found, he could actually determine that which devices were safe or which devices had problems. So that this report which he published, he actually took it and went to his hospital administrator and said that, okay, these are the devices I found to be safe and not safe. So stop buying those that are unsafe and just focus, look at the evidence and see which devices are safe to be used in the healthcare setting. So that was the start of the organization. And then other hospitals started to hear about what Dr. Joel Noble did, and they started asking for this report as well. So as that grew, the need for information at that time, especially on medical devices, testing of medical devices. So Joel Noble established ECRI, or the Emergency Care Research Institute at that time, so that we could independently test medical devices without interference from manufacturers, or without just relying what the manufacturer said. We could get it into our lab, get our engineers to perform all kinds of tests and produce our findings to our members. And the members I mean here is that those who subscribe to our databases. So we publish all this information, such as our evaluation and guidance on medical devices, on our member website. And so this grew, and over the years, we have started expanding into many different areas. So this was the start. Okay. So I'm just showing here a milestone of what ECRI, how ECRI started way back in 1968 and up to today. So some of the milestones. So in 1971, as you can see, we published our health devices journal. The first issue was published, and we also started something called the Medical Device Problem Reporting Network. So that was one of the first in the US, or probably in the world at that time, where we used to collect information on medical device problems. There were hospitals could report it to us, report to ECRI, and we would analyze those reports and publish our findings or let people know, okay, what's wrong with the device. So, and this was done very independently. So we did not get any funding from manufacturers or any other medical device or pharma companies. We basically got grants, from the government or through our membership programs that we had our revenue. So we used all that funding to self-fund our testing. And then over the years, of course, Dr. Joel Noble did more work, and of course, all the engineers with him. We published a lot of reports to do with medical device safety. So over the years, there were many different databases that we introduced. Okay, we have this something until today. We have the Select Plus membership, where it's a compilation of evaluation and guidance in articles, reports, product comparison reports, hazards and recalls, and also price benchmarks for medical devices. So all that very useful information for hospitals when making purchase decisions. And then we moved on to technology assessment, where new and emerging technologies out there, we started assessing the evidence, looking at the potential of forecasting the impact of those technologies in the industry, especially to guide hospitals when making decisions whether they should invest in certain new technologies or not. All right. And in 1997, we were designated as an evidence-based practice center by AHRQ, or is the Agency for Healthcare Research and Quality in the US. I think it's quite a well-known organization. And currently, we are one of the 9 evidence-based practice centers designated by AHRQ. The reason is because from the work that we have done, from the evaluation and testing on medical device that we do is always based on, a very objective evidence, and whatever we find, whether it's positive or negative, we will report those findings, without any cover-up. So that was in 1997, and in 2008, we were designated as a patient safety organization, a PSO, in the US. So a PSO is basically an organization which collects data on adverse events happening in the healthcare industry. We analyze those adverse events, and then we publish our findings together with recommendations and sometimes even training programs so that to reduce this sort of adverse events from recurring. And over the years, we launched many different products to focus on genetic testing and also more on supply guide management, supply chain management for medical devices, very support tools. And early this year, in 2020, we merged with another organization called ISMP, the Institute for Safe Medication Practices. So basically what ECRI has been doing all these years, looking at medical device safety, ISMP has been over the past 20 over years doing the same for pharmaceutical products or drugs. So this merger actually resulted in 2 PSOs, so patient safety organizations, coming together and now forming one of the largest PSOs in the world. So it's basically complementing the work we do when it comes to safety of medical devices and now safety of pharmaceutical products or drugs.
Okay.
Right. So basically, ECRI, what drives us is those few keywords there you see on safety, quality, and cost effectiveness. So those are the key things that drive the work that we do. Patient safety, of course, is of utmost importance, as you know. So that is a major part of what we do in terms of the work. Evidence-based medicine means we publish, real evidence. We look through the literature and whatever reports we publish, for example, on healthcare technology assessment, we look at the real evidence out there and share it with our members to see which evidence, is strong evidence-based or not so strong evidence-based, so that people know, the studies out there, what sort of findings are there to support the health outcomes that are intended. Technology decision support, of course, we are known as a healthcare technology management organization. So we have various resources. So not only membership programs, we also have consulting services and also training programs on healthcare technology management, ideally to ensure hospitals or healthcare organizations make the correct decisions or make informed decisions when purchasing medical devices. All right, so these are some of the areas where, how we are known. ECRI is known worldwide. So we serve thousands of members, ranging from hospitals, health systems, government agencies, regulators, payers, and insurers. We are also known as an independent testing and evaluation lab. This is how we started, still known as an independent lab till today. And now we have 2 labs, one in the US and another one in Kuala Lumpur in Malaysia. Okay. And Patient Safety Organization is one of the designations where the US Department of Health and Human Services has accorded to us because of the work that we do in the US. And an evidence-based practice center, I think that I've mentioned about the designation given by AHRQ. Right? And this is an important designation because we are only one of 9 evidence-based practice centers. And so we have published a lot of what we call systematic reviews, evidence reports related to medical devices, procedures, drugs, and so forth. It's part of our healthcare technology assessment range of services. You know, we're also very much involved in horizon scanning work. That means looking at the new and emerging technologies out there and how they could affect patient outcomes. And safety and cost effectiveness of medical technology. That's what ECRI is really trusted for, because the information that we provide on our databases to all our members, whether being findings from our tests or safety recalls from manufacturers or other regulatory agencies which we have identified and verified, you know, through our price benchmarking services, we ensure that, you know, hospitals are paying the right prices for the medical devices which they purchase, and so much more, so that to ensure whatever medical technologies which hospitals use or invest in, you know, it's safe and cost effective, you know, because resources are scarce. You know, hospitals have to make the correct decisions when it comes to investing money, you know, on the right technologies. Okay, so these are some of the unique features or unique qualities of ECRI. And I think I should mention here, I think I mentioned earlier that we don't accept funding from medical device manufacturers or pharmaceutical companies. And that's also because ECRI is actually a non-profit agency. Okay, we're known as a non-profit research agency, so we don't have any owners or shareholders. The organization is governed by a board of trustees, right? And whatever income or revenue that the company makes, it goes back into the company to support our research, development, and also expansion internationally. All right, so it's a very unique organization in the sense that keeps us very objective in the work that we do. You know, because one thing is that when we don't accept any advertisement fees or even funding for, or even consulting fees from medical device manufacturers, we are not bound by, you know, certain limitations when publishing our actual findings from our tests. So if we find something which is advantageous or disadvantageous, we will publish the information as it is.